All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest questions in leadership. Seriously, it's a debate that's been going on for ages, and the answer, well, it changes everything about how we think about who can lead and how they get there. So here's the big question. Are leaders just born that way with some kind of special, innate talent, or is leadership something you can actually learn? This one question basically splits all leadership theories into two different camps. For a long, long time, people were really focused on that born side of things, trying to find that magical ingredient, right? But what if that's only looking at half of the picture? And that's exactly where the skills approach comes in. See, the old trait approach pretty much says you either have it or you don't. But the skills approach, it flips that on its head and says, nope, leadership is a set of abilities. And you know what's great about abilities? They can be learned. They can be developed. This isn't just some abstract theory. It's a genuine roadmap for anyone to become a leader as long as you put in the practice. So where did this whole idea of learnable leadership even come from? Well, we got to rewind back to 1955. A researcher named Robert Katz published this article that was a total game changer. He argued that what makes a leader effective isn't their personality, but three fundamental skills that anyone can work on. Okay, first up, technical skills. This is your bread and butter, your expertise in a specific field. Think about a great chef who just knows their way around a kitchen, or a brilliant programmer who can write flawless code. It's all about being proficient with the actual things and processes of the job. Next, we've got human skills. You can just call them people skills, and honestly, they are absolutely crucial. This is all about your ability to work with people, your team, your colleagues, your own boss. It's about creating an environment of trust where everyone feels they can speak up and do their best work. And rounding out the trio, we have conceptual skills. This is where you zoom all the way out. A leader with strong conceptual skills can see the entire organization not just as a bunch of separate parts, but as one big, interconnected system. They're the ones who can create a vision and figure out how all the pieces fit together to get there. Now, check this out, because this is where it gets really cool. Katz's model shows that the mix of these skills changes depending on where you are in an organization. If you look at this chart, for supervisor on the front lines, technical skills are everything. You have to know the work inside and out. But as you move up into middle management and then top management, that balance shifts big time. By the time you get to the C-suite, it's almost all about those conceptual, big picture skills. The CEO doesn't need to be the best coder, but they absolutely need to have the vision. Katz's three-skill model was revolutionary, for sure, but it was just the starting point. Fast forward to the 1990s, and a new team of researchers decided to build on his ideas. They developed a much more detailed, comprehensive skills model, and they based their research on a pretty high-stakes organization, the U.S. Army. Okay, I know this one looks a little more complex, but it gives us a much richer understanding of leadership. It basically lays out 5 key pieces that all work together. It starts on the left with a leader's individual attributes, things like their natural cognitive ability and personality. Those attributes then feed into their core competencies in the middle. We're going to talk more about those in a second. And then those competencies are what really drive the leadership outcomes, their actual performance. But look, you've also got career experiences and environmental influences in there, because let's face it, leadership never happens in a bubble. Now, if you look right at the center of this model, there's an engine. This is what makes the whole thing run. It's made up of 3 core competencies. The idea is, if a leader can really get a handle on these, they've got the foundation they need to succeed. So, what are these 3 magic ingredients? They're problem-solving skills, social judgment skills, and knowledge. You can really think of these as the essential toolkit for any leader today. So let's break them down one by one. First up, problem-solving skills, and we're not talking about your everyday run-of-the-mill issues here. This is about a leader's ability to tackle those really messy, complex, and ambiguous challenges. The kinds of problems that don't have a clear answer in any textbook. Next, you have social judgment skills. Think of these as people skills on a whole other level. It's the ability to really understand other people's perspectives, to see the social dynamics in a group, and to know how to communicate and persuade people to rally behind a new idea. And finally, knowledge. But again, this isn't just about knowing a bunch of facts. Truly effective leaders have what are called schemas. They have these well-organized mental filing cabinets that help them sort and make sense of complex information. It's like having an incredible personal library where you know exactly where every book is and how it connects to all the others. Okay, so this all sounds really good in theory, right? But what happens when it plays out in the real world? Well, there's a case study about an Air Force officer that gives us a pretty perfect and honestly kind of painful example of what happens when a leader is missing one of these critical skills. So this officer, he was given the tough assignment of downsizing his base. And if you looked at the plan on paper, he was an absolute rock star. He hit every target, met every deadline, a flawless execution. But here's the problem. He did it all without any thought for the human side of the equation. He caused huge disruptions and a ton of stress. His plan was technically perfect, but it was a total failure in conceptual skill. And his commander summed it all up with that one brutal line of feedback. So we've gone through the theory, we've heard the cautionary tale. What's the bottom line here? How can you actually take this stuff and use it on your own leadership journey? Let's talk about the key takeaways. You know, the biggest strength of the skills approach is just how empowering it is. It basically democratizes leadership. It says that leadership isn't some mystical quality you're born with. It puts it in reach for all of us. It's a set of skills you can actually learn and practice, and it gives us a clear roadmap to do just that. But of course, no theory is perfect, and it's only fair to look at the criticisms. Because this model is so broad and includes so many different factors, some people argue it's a little less precise than other theories. It's not a crystal ball. It can't perfectly predict who will be a great leader. And by including things like cognitive ability, it kind of blurs that line between skills you learn and traits you're born with. At the end of the day, though, the skills approach gives us this really powerful idea. Leadership is a lot like playing a sport. Sure, some people might be born with a bit more natural talent, but with good coaching, a lot of practice, and the desire to get better, anyone, and I mean anyone, can dramatically improve their game. The exact same thing is true for leadership. So let's bring it all back to you. When you think about your own work and your career, which one of these skills, technical, human, or conceptual, is your biggest opportunity for growth right now? And more importantly, what's one small thing you can do this week to start practicing it? Because that's how the journey to becoming a better leader really begins.